This is not a story about Africa. This is not a story about global medicine or volunteer work. This is a story about what happens when you pay attention to who your child actually is. One room, one experience, 4 kids, 4 completely different human beings, processing that experience in 4 completely different ways. We were in a hospital in the far northern region of Ghana, 40 degrees, it was their winter, no air conditioning, walls were smeared with things I didn't look at too closely. My husband was doing pediatric rounds in a long rectangular room, metal cribs along the walls, mothers sleeping on the floor beside their sick kids. And I had my 4 kids with me, 1 for each hour in the morning as we sat with him. Hannah 13, Madeline 11, Rachel 9, and Zach 5. Same room, same day, same experience. And when I sat down with them afterward and asked them what they saw, I got 4 completely different answers. I hadn't taught them how to respond. I hadn't assigned a method or a format or a learning outcome. And yet each of them had gone exactly where their mind naturally went. Hannah to relationship, Madeline to meaning, Rachel to the concrete and physical, Zach to the sensory. They didn't learn despite their differences. They learned through them. Each of their perspectives were so different because they are so different. They perceive things differently. We spend so much energy trying to pour the right information into our kids, as if the right curriculum is the right way to do this. But what I watched in that hospital room told me something different. The learning wasn't happening to them. It was coming out of them. Your child is the curriculum. Welcome back. I'm Teresa Wiedrich, homeschool life coach, graduated homeschool mom, and author of the book Homeschool Mama Self-Care, Nurturing the Nurturer. This channel is for the mom who looks capable on the outside, but feels scattered and unsure on the inside. My work focuses inward because most homeschool overwhelm has nothing to do with curriculum. It has everything to do with the pressure, the perfectionism, and the old scripts that we carry inside. I believe you are the most important curriculum in your homeschool. And today we're going to talk about the second most important one. This is stop 4 of the Confident Homeschool Roadmap. Links to stops 1 through 3 are below. Let's go. Here is what most new homeschool parents do before they begin or during their first year. They research curriculum obsessively. They join Facebook groups, ask which math curriculum is the best one, which reading program actually works. They spend hours on Kathy Duffy's website. So did I. I love you, Kathy Duffy. And they ended up purchasing 2 different language arts programs because they can't decide, and then feel guilty when they want to buy a different one. I know, because I was that mom too. And it's why I still own a room full of curriculum. And here's what I've learned. After years of coaching homeschool moms and learning this myself, the curriculum anxiety is almost never actually about curriculum. It's about the fear underneath. What if I choose wrong? What if I don't equip them for what they need? What if a different program would have made my child love reading or love math or love learning? And I picked the wrong one. Here's the reframe I want to offer you today. The most important curriculum decision you will ever make is not Saxon versus Matthew C. Although I like Matthew C. I used it. It's not Charlotte Mason versus classical. I did both. It's not workbooks versus living books. Also check. I did both. The most important curriculum decision you will ever make is learning who your child actually is. Let me take you back to the pediatric ward in El Regu, Ghana. We had been living on the hospital compound for 3 weeks while my husband did volunteer medical work. The kids and I were doing math games in the mornings and writing about our experiences and then spending their afternoons in what I can only describe as the most immersive education of their lives, right outside our door, and sometimes even right at our door, when women would come knocking with a tray of mangoes balancing on their heads and asking us if we'd like some, or boys of all ages with their soccer balls looking for anyone in our home who wanted to play soccer with them. One afternoon, I sat down with each of them and I asked my kids, "What did you see today?" Hannah, age 13 at the time, said, "You walk into a huge rectangular room. There are beds all along the edges, filled with sick kids and their moms. You're sitting beside your dad, and beside him, a nurse. And then there's another nurse beside the first one. But this one looks like he doesn't need to be there. He's just interested in the girl nurse. Hannah noticed the social dynamics before she noticed the medicine. She was born an observer, a watcher. I remember her just 3 weeks old, sitting on the kitchen table in a car seat, staring up at the hanging white and black mobile. And in the pediatric ward, she was observing relationship. Her response filled 2 pages. Not coincidentally, she graduated with an honors degree in psychology. Truly. Madeline, age 11, said it was a little gross sometimes, different. I would say it was sad, but it's very interesting at the same time. Some things are also disgusting. Other kids you see that are sad, and you just feel sad for them. But to wrap it up in 3 words, interesting, depressing, compassion. Madeline went straight to the emotional truth of it. She synthesized and compressed. All grown up, she's now begun a rural pre-med program herself and hopes to write MCATs next summer. Rachel, age 9, said, I got to sit on Dad's chair in pediatrics. The worst thing I saw was this little baby. She was 1 year old and the size of my head and arms together. Rachel compared it to herself. She was making sense of scale and proportion of what was visible and immediate. She wasn't analyzing, she was absorbing. To this day, this kiddo, aka 20-year-old, continues to absorb her surroundings with clarity as she travels the world and takes all sorts of experiences in, like the Jacques Cartier Bridge in Montreal on a Vespa. Naturally, may she live to tell many tales. Zach, age 5, said, I saw this guy who had fillings that looked like ketchup and mustard. Okay, let me explain. He meant bandages, not fillings. He was 5, right? And then he goes on to say, it goes on his arms in places because he got really hurt a lot. He had a burning vat of oil accidentally fall on him, this fellow. And then Zach goes on to say, I never want to go into medicine, probably because it's not very clean and it's not very fun. I would get paid to watch this guy, though. Zach was 5. He told me he never wanted to go into medicine, but he'd love to get paid to watch. The pragmatism as a 5-year-old, the humor, the 5-year-old processing a burn victim through the lens of a condiment, because that is the frame his brain reached for. And in just a few months, he will begin an engineering program in university, not medicine. This is not a story about Africa. This is not a story about global medicine or volunteer work. This is a story about what happens when you pay attention to who your child actually is. 1 room, 1 experience, 4 kids, 4 completely different human beings, processing that experience in 4 completely different ways. That was the curriculum. So what does it mean practically to treat your child as the curriculum? It means your first job is observation. Before you choose a reading program, watch how your child processes information. Do they talk through ideas out loud? Or do they need a quiet moment to think? Do they need to move while they learn? Or do they settle into stillness? Do they gravitate towards stories or towards systems and patterns? This means your second job is actually flexibility, not just observing. The learning program or the curriculum is a tool. Your child is not required to fit the program. The program must fit your child. Or you set it down entirely and take a walk and call it a day. It also means your job is to trust. This is by far the most challenging one for most of us. We've been conditioned to believe that children learn because they need to be prodded and tested and measured and compared. What I've seen again and again with homeschool families and with kids that are not in homeschool families is that children who are seen, who are understood, who are given some agency in their own learning, those children become voracious in their learning and focused. Anna became an observer, the one who walks into a room and reads it before she speaks. She notices who holds the power, who's performing, who's hurting. Madeline became someone who synthesizes complexity into elegant simplicity. Rachel became someone who understands people by understanding herself in relation to them. And at 5, Zach didn't have the vocabulary for burn dressings, so he reached for the vocabulary he had, ketchup and mustard. That's a 5-year-old mind, doing exactly what a good mind does, making sense of the unknown by connecting it to the known. And then, without any hand-wringing, he told me clearly, I never want to go into medicine. He knew, at 5, in a burn ward in Ghana. He already knew who he was and who he wasn't. None of that came from a curriculum. All of it came from who they already were. And from us paying enough attention to not change that, not even try. Now, I want to ask you something. If you sat down with your kiddo today, your actual child in front of you, the one maybe who won't sit still, or who cries when you want to introduce something new, or who only wants to talk about one thing, Legos, their build, or Minecraft, or you fill in the blank. If you ask that kiddo what they noticed today, what would they say? What did they search for when no one's directing them? What are they building in their minds when you're not watching? That is the real information you need. It matters more than other people's opinions on math curriculum, reading curriculum, writing curriculum, or anything else. You do not need the perfect curriculum to homeschool well. You need to know your child. And you, the person who lives with that child, who makes their breakfast and reads to them and watches them sleep, you are the most qualified person in the world to figure that out. Learning to lean into it, to trust your own observations, to build your homeschool from the inside out. That's what this 7-day Confident Homeschool Roadmap is all about. So here's what I want to leave with you today. You don't need the perfect curriculum to homeschool well. You need to know your child, and you, the person who lives with that child, who makes their breakfast and reads to them and watches them fall asleep, is the most qualified person to figure that out. So start there, watch them, ask them what they noticed today. Sit with what comes back. And if you want a framework to help you do that, to build your homeschool from the inside out, I put together that 7-day Confident Homeschool Roadmap. It's free. It's in the description below. And day 4 connects directly to everything we talked about today. Grab it, work through it, and let it be the foundation of your homeschool year. Stop 5 is coming, and we're talking about the S word, socialization. That question every new homeschool parent gets from every relative and every holiday dinner. I'm going to lay it to rest, hopefully, for you, not for everybody else. With a story about 40 Ghanaian kids, my 4 Canadian kids, and a game of duck, duck, goose. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if this video helped you today, share it with a homeschool mom who needs to hear it. That's how we find each other. I'll see you at stop 5.